Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Friday, December 10th. This is Africa 54.
The Omicron variant drives a massive surge in COVID-19 infections in South Africa. Nigeria's displaced fear a forced return home. And a closer look at the current state of nutrition on the continent.
The World Health Organization is reporting a massive surge in COVID-19 cases in South Africa. However, data suggests that Omicron variant is causing less severe disease than in previous waves of the coronavirus. David Doyle has more.
South Africa has witnessed a nearly 255% increase in cases of COVID-19 over the past 7 days, a World Health Organization official said on Thursday. The country is in the grip of a fourth wave, driven by the Omicron variant. And in Johannesburg, Nurse Zodwa Kutu said the speed with which the new strain is spreading is worrying.
More so that people do not seem to respond in terms of attendance to come and vaccinate. And if it spreads faster, then it becomes a problem.
At a briefing on Thursday, WHO Regional COVID-19 Manager Dr. Tieno Bolde said admissions to public and private hospitals were on the rise.
This is about almost 12% of increase when we look at the past 24 hours. That was as of yesterday. So definitely we are having more cases and also more people who have been admitted.
But there is a silver lining. Bolde said just 6% of ICU beds in South Africa are currently occupied by COVID-19 patients. Suggestions that Omicron may be causing less severe disease were also supported by early data from the National Institute for Communicable Diseases in Tshwane, the metropolitan area including the capital Pretoria. The hospital statistics showed less than a third of people admitted to hospital with COVID-19 were suffering from severe illness. That compares with 2/3 at the start of the previous 2 waves. Thursday's briefing also heard that Omicron, first detected in Southern Africa and Hong Kong, has now reached 60 countries worldwide. 10 are in Africa, the WHO said. And the continent accounts for 46% of the nearly 1,000 Omicron cases reported globally.
David Doyle of Reuters filed that report. South African officials plan to roll out vaccine boosters as daily infections approach an all-time high. South Africa alerted the world to Omicron late last month, triggering an alarm that the highly mutated variant could ignite a new surge in global infections. But scientists say more time is needed to arrive at a definitive conclusion. Meanwhile, Health Minister Joe Phala says the signs of severity are positive and the vaccines are showing to be really still very strong in protecting against severe disease.
This is still early days, but there are very promising signs that largely patients, even those who are in hospital, are mild. Many of them are incidental. They came into hospital for other reasons, other illnesses. And because when you have to be admitted, you have to be tested first. And many of those who had come for other reasons have tested positive, notwithstanding that they are not ill from the COVID-19 variant itself.
South Africa has fully vaccinated about 38% of adults, more than in many other African countries, but well short of the government's year-end target. It recently delayed some vaccine deliveries due to oversupply as the pace of inoculations slowed. As wealthy nations share more COVID-19 shots with Africa, health officials across the continent are scrambling to overcome vaccine hesitancy and logistical problems to get the doses into the arms before they expire. Panda Health, a Nairobi-based chain that provides low-cost private health care, has found one way to speed things up, bring the shots closer to people's homes. For many Kenyans, traveling to one of the big hospitals prioritized as vaccine centers meant lost earnings to take time off work and finding transport they could ill afford. So many didn't go. But this week, dozens of people patiently lined up for a shot outside Panda's Tasia Medical Center, a clinic now delivering the vaccine on their doorstep in one of Nairobi's poorer neighborhoods.
It's unfair that when there's a new development in healthcare and medicine and medical science somewhere in the world, it takes too long for it to get to the people who live in our communities. And so part of what Penda is trying to do is shorten the time to get those new medical innovations to our patients. So when the COVID vaccine came around, we were really excited because this is one of the key ways that we can put an end to the pandemic.
With just 7% of people fully vaccinated across Africa and supplies of vaccines improving, experts are urging African governments to copy the kind of approach taken by Panda to improve the immunization rate across the continent. Nigeria's Borno state is planning to close camps in the regional capital, Maiduguri, where tens of thousands of people who fled militant violence are living. But some say it is not safe to go home. Angela Ukumadu has the story.
7 years ago, Boko Haram militants killed Hawa Amaju Kukuda's husband. She fled her rural home in Goza and has since been living at the Bakassi camp in Maiduguri, the capital of Nigeria's northeastern Borno state. She and her 8 children share a 2-room mud-walled house. Life is tough, but she's terrified to leave. But like 300,000 displaced others, she might not have a choice. Borno State plans to close Maiduguri's camps by the end of the year, citing improved security and the surrender of thousands of fighters in recent months. Kukuda fears it is still not safe.
They kill today, they kill tomorrow. Even in the farm, you will just be killed. Honestly, I can't go back because I have no shelter.
Data from the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project showed 2,532 people had died in attacks in Borno by the end of November, compared with 3,184 in 2020. Idiat Hassan is director of the Abuja-based research organization, the Center for Democracy and Development. She says while the authorities can say the situation is not as bad, the violence has not stopped.
Maybe in some parts there was cessation of hostility, but the Islamic State in the West African province continue to attack. In fact, there are hardly any week where there is actually no attack.
Someone who may well be aware of that is Borno State Governor Babagana Zulum. His own convoy came under fire in October. Residents at Bakassa says he has offered them cash to leave. His spokesman said the governor would support anyone who wants to live elsewhere in Maiduguri rather than return home, and that he only approves and encourages safe, voluntary and dignified resettlement.
That was Angela Ukumadu of Reuters reporting. As sporadic fighting continues in parts of Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, thousands who fled to Uganda have chosen to return home. Others uncertain about the future are opting to stay. In early November, clashes broke out between armed groups and the Congolese armed forces, sending asylum seekers across the border to Uganda. Though 10,000 people have since returned, some refugees are worried about their safety and have chosen to remain behind. When fighting erupted in the villages surrounding Bunagana town near the border with Uganda, the Ugandan government opened the border. The United Nations Refugee Agency say Uganda's Prime Minister and other partners provided assistance to the refugees, relocating about 500 Congolese to the Nyakabande Transit Center. Uganda's rhino population was wiped out by poaching in the last century, but a private conservancy is hoping its breeding program can see them reintroduced to the country's national parks. Clara Frank explains.
Hundreds of rhinos used to roam Uganda's sprawling savannas and tropical woodlands. But over the 20th century, during years of political instability, including the dictatorship of Idi Amin, poachers killed them unchecked. The combined native population of northern white rhino and eastern black rhino was once above 700. By 1983, according to the Uganda Wildlife Authority, it had been wiped out. Now a private wildlife ranch, which is breeding rhinos, is rekindling hopes of a wide-scale regeneration of the species and their reintroduction to the East African country's national parks.
We guard them 24/7.
Moses Okello is the Ziwa Rhino and Wildlife Ranch's rhino specialist.
So that we can achieve our goal by reaching a number of 40 to 45, then we can release this rhino to the national park, as it used to be to their natural habitat.
The Conservancy was established in 2005 and started off with 4 southern white rhinos imported from a Kenyan game reserve.
All of this is a footprint of a rhino.
The following year, 2 more rhinos were donated from a zoo in Florida. Since then, breeding has brought their number to 33. But protecting the valuable beasts is a constant job, says ranger and guide Patrick Opio.
If the rhino's resting, you will be resting. If the rhino's moving, you'll have to move with it. So even if it's raining, you have to be there with the rhino. So it's not something that is very easy.
Intense monitoring is crucial to prevent poachers from returning. It's hectic work, Opio says, but they do it out of love for the rhinos. Clara Frank, Washington.
We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, VOA Music Time in Africa host Heather Maxwell interviews the best female African act in the diaspora. Stay with us.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Lina Khmoudou, in Washington every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
The 2021 Global Nutrition Report highlights inadequate progress on nutrition. The report reveals that most countries are falling short of the World Health Organization's global nutrition targets. The lack of progress on inadequate diets and malnutrition is contributing to an increase in preventable illnesses and fatalities exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic and climate change. Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu spoke with Jacqueline Kungu, Regional Advisor of Research and Evaluation at Africa Nutrition International, about the state of nutrition in Africa.
I will summarize a few highlights from the Global Nutrition Report. And the first one is that poor diets and malnutrition in all its forms remain unacceptably high. across the world. So not just in Africa, but globally. Secondly, over the last 10 years, we haven't seen an improvement in our diets. They are now a major threat to people's health and the planet. The third thing is that the financial costs of addressing malnutrition are rising, but the cost of inaction is even far much greater. And lastly, I want to just say that this is the nutrition year of action, and the Global Nutrition Report has also put forward a nutrition accountability framework. So it's an opportunity for decision makers to leverage on this for accelerating nutrition efforts.
What is the state of nutrition in Africa, and are there some significant changes from previous years?
The global situation is really dire. Generally, we are off course for 5 of the 6 maternal, infant, and young child and nutrition targets, and we're also off course to meet all the non-communicable disease diet-related targets. In Africa, we've seen mixed progress towards achieving global nutrition targets, and no country in the region is on course to meet any of the diet-related non-communicable disease targets.
So what are some of the main drivers of malnutrition on the continent?
First, I'd like to say that nutrition is a complex issue. So we have immediate causes of malnutrition, we have underlying causes of malnutrition, and then we have basic causes of malnutrition. So the immediate causes of malnutrition are poor diets and disease. Then the underlying causes of malnutrition are such as household food insecurity, and the basic causes of malnutrition are things such as access to resources such as land or income, and gender norms and barriers. So there are lots of things that kind of work together to cause the complex issue of malnutrition. So the immediate causes, which is what I want us to focus on, are poor diets and disease. Just to focus a little bit on Africa, as a result of COVID, the situation has been further exacerbated. For example, we've seen an increased number of people who are more undernourished in the last year also as a result of COVID. So generally, we have a bad situation, but COVID has exacerbated the situation even further.
Given that there have been some drivers, you mentioned 3 different levels in the past, even before COVID, and now we have COVID. So in terms of solution, where do we start?
First, I have to say that malnutrition is solvable. There are a number of things that we can do to tackle the issue of malnutrition. So the first thing that we can do is really accelerate the efforts towards addressing the different issues around malnutrition. So just scaling up, making sure we're implementing nutrition programs at scale to make sure they're reaching all the vulnerable people, everybody who's intended to be reached by the programs are being reached. Then secondly, we have to make sure that poor diets and malnutrition are addressed holistically in a way that they ensure a healthier future for people and the planet. So we are not addressing malnutrition at the expense of our planet. So we have to make sure that we are able to kind of address the future, the healthy future of our people, as well as making sure that we're tackling the climate change issue and not making it worse. Then I talked about financing. So we have to come up with innovative ways of kind of making sure we have the resources we require. Then lastly, again, I talked about the nutrition accountability framework. We have to make sure that people are making commitments that ensure that impact can be measured and that we're able to trace or track the nutrition.
What are the main takeaways for you from the 2021 Global Nutrition Report?
The main takeaway is that, one, we have all this data that is not very encouraging, but this data should certainly catalyze action. So the point of this data is not just to show us how bad the situation is, but it's really to invigorate our efforts into tackling the problem of malnutrition. The other thing that has come out of this report is the issues around making sure that we have adequate financing for nutrition. So for us to effectively shift the global nutrition target, or just making sure that we are able to meet our targets or at least move towards the target, we have to have adequate resources to tackle the problem of malnutrition. So making sure we have different ways of fundraising and make sure we have adequate funds to tackle the malnutrition problem.
Jacqueline Kunu, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
That was Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu speaking with Jacqueline Kungu, Regional Advisor of Research and Evaluation with Africa Nutrition International. U.S. President Joe Biden acknowledged America's vulnerabilities as he hosted a two-day virtual summit for democracy, bringing together world leaders, civil society, and the private sector to counter authoritarianism, fight corruption, and promote respect for human rights. VOA White House Bureau Chief Patsy Widakuswara has more.
As violent conflicts ravage the world, creating economic and physical insecurity amid a lethal pandemic, democracy's defenders sustained heavy losses in their struggle against authoritarian foes.
In the face of sustained and alarming challenges to democracy, universal human rights, and all around the world, democracy needs champions.
On Thursday, U.S. President Joe Biden hosted a virtual summit for democracy, bringing together more than 100 countries with an agenda of democratic renewal.
Democratic systems and the progress they make can be fragile. They need certain things to thrive. Among them, high-quality institutions, a clear social contract that binds people together and underpins their relationship with governments, an unwavering commitment to human rights and the rule of law, a real voice for marginalised people, and the ability to make decisions and respond to pressing economic and social issues.
Democratic backsliding around the world has shifted the balance in favor of tyranny, according to a recent report by Freedom House.
What we're seeing is a real threat that's happening globally to the global system. And what we're also seeing is threats to others who support democracy, to human rights activists in each of those countries, and to actions where we see authoritarians that are spreading their reach to democracies and others through transnational repression, through trying to silence oppositionists in other countries.
In his remarks, Biden acknowledged America's own democratic backsliding and vulnerabilities.
We know as well as anyone that renewing our democracy and strengthening our democratic institutions requires constant effort. American democracy is an ongoing struggle to live up to our highest ideals and to heal our divisions.
Beijing, furious that Taiwan, which it considers a breakaway province, is attending, has countered with its own International Forum on Democracy, as seen in videos supplied by Chinese state TV that VOA cannot independently verify. The Summit for Democracy will conclude Friday. An in-person summit is planned to take place in about a year. Patsy Widakuswara, VOA News.
The All Africa Music Awards is a combined effort by music professionals across the continent to celebrate and recognize African talents and creatives worldwide. Its 7th edition recently took place in Lagos, Nigeria. VOA's Music Time in Africa host Heather Maxwell sat down with one of the winners, the best female African act in the diaspora. Let's watch.
Hey everyone, I have the privilege of having Naomi Achu right next to me in the studio. How are you?
I'm great. Hi Heather, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You are called Queen of Bamenda. Now, how did you come to that title?
Years back, I wrote this song called Alaji, and in the second verse is a rap verse. And in that verse, I was like, really giving some punchlines, and I was like, Queen of Bamenda. And, the song did well, and people started calling me Queen of Bamenda because it was so catchy.
I take it higher than the Kilimanjaro. Yeah, I'll make you feel like Cupid hit you with an arrow. Queen of Bamenda, almost sexy.
You are from Cameroon, but you're also living in the U.S. How long have you been here in the U.S.?
Oh, I've been here for years, over 10 years. Lived in the D.C. area, California, and I've traveled all over for shows and stuff.
Yeah.
Ooh, pass me a lighter. I'm waiting for my baby to come over.
Let's get to the Afrima Awards. So you won the award Best Diaspora Act for Female Artist.
Yes.
How do you feel?
I feel amazing. I feel great. I've definitely been working very hard this year and last year during the whole pandemic, putting the album together. So I'm happy to be recognized. by my own, it definitely feels great. And it motivates me to want to do more.
Turn off the light if you want my body, baby.
How did you get chosen for that award?
Anybody who received an award at the FREMA had to have submitted their music.
What did you submit?
I submitted several of my tracks.
Oh, okay. So you can submit several.
They chose Trust in Me from the album African Pepper that came out earlier this year.
This isn't your first time winning a FREMA. So you won back in 2016, was it?
Yes.
For what?
Busybody.
Oh, the song
Yes.
Busybody.
Yeah, the song Busybody, and it was for Best Female Inspirational.
Now, why was that song inspirational?
Well, if you listen to the lyrics, it's talking about...
Sing a little bit.
She be busybody, she know they sleep for night. She be busybody, she know they sleep for night. So what that means is that this woman is so hardworking that she's always, never has time for herself, and she's always giving back to the community.
My love in la pepe, my body in a investment.
Naomi, there's one video I was watching, because you have so many great ones out there.
Thank you.
And in a lyric, you said something like, my body is my asset. So
Yes.
I was like, all right.
I love that song.
What song is that?
It's called Robo Brobo. My loving na pepe, my body na investment.
Yes.
So yeah, my body is an investment. If you sign the booklet, I go show you the assets. So booklet can be if you marry me, right? Because you're signing a booklet. So now that you have married me, I can give you everything. You can have me in all my glory.
I see. Your voice is so nice, and you write all of your own lyrics, right?
I do.
So how did you get started singing?
I'll tell you how I developed my voice, or how I developed the passion to write.
Yeah.
I'm the last child of 6. So I always had a big brother or a big sister telling me what to do. And of course I had my mom and my dad. So whenever I opened my mouth, it was, oh, well, we've done this, and we don't need your opinion. So I was like, I want to be heard. So I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna start writing music. And since they wouldn't listen to me when I was speaking, now that I was singing, they had to listen to me, because it's a song, so they're gonna listen to that song.
Boom shaka, I go add my key and she talk. So just eat it up like avocado.
So your new album, African Pepper, is out. Yes. You can get it everywhere. You should listen to it. And look forward to seeing and hearing more from you.
Thank you. Thank you, Heather. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
All right, that was Naomi Achu, the Queen of Bamenda. See you next time.
Thank you, Heather. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a great weekend.